crying and saying, Cookie, please don't butcher me. I am not going to butcher you. But I just do not understand that you and I have fallen in love. We have decided to get married, and you're asking me to sign a prenup stating that and so. It doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, I won't butcher you. We'll get into it. That doesn't mean that that's my stance, so I'm just saying. So just take it easy on us. But welcome, legal practitioner Amos Anoche Kusi Esquire. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you. I'm fine. Yourself?
We are confused, Kakra, because your books are many.
Well, then let me hide it so you don't get confused.
It's already here, so don't hide it. It's already here.
All right.
But anyway, let's talk about prenups this morning and how important they are. But first of all, let's take it from the basics. When we talk about prenup agreements, exactly what are they?
All right. Good morning to your viewers. Basically, it's just a normal agreement.
You call it normal?
I'll call it normal.
Okay.
Any agreement between will-be couples,
okay,
which intends to, as it were, regulate their marital properties upon the breakup or dissolution of the marriage. That is why I said it's any agreement. It's an ordinary agreement between would-be couples.
Okay. Any agreement, ordinary agreement.
Yes.
Is it popular here in Africa and in Ghana for that matter?
In our space, it's not popular in Ghana, I would say.
Okay.
Because there is no legislation. If I say legislation, there is no law regulating it. And so if one attempts to enforce such agreement, there may be a legal hurdle for the person to cross. I say so because any contract, there are some elements that makes it valid.
Okay.
And so those elements should be very clear.
Okay.
And then you can also have a contract that will, as it were, go against public policy, or it will contravene a law. And so when I say contravening a law or going against public policy, that means that it shouldn't affect any established law. Now, already our Constitution makes provision for how spousal properties are supposed to be dealt with under Article 22. But in the first place, the Constitution also recognizes every person having the right to own property either by himself or in association with others. So that right is already guaranteed. However, when it comes to spousal property, then the Constitution gives parameters because there is no legislation on prenup, as it were. And that's why I early on stated that if you want to enforce prenup, there may be a legal hurdle for you to cross because the Constitution has set parameters. So when we look at the Constitution under Article 22(3), thereabout, it talks about two basic things. One, any jointly acquired property, okay, during the subsistence of the marriage, each of the parties shall have equal access. So in terms of access, both couples are entitled to access the property, jointly acquired.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to the distribution of the spousal property under the second leg, it says that all the parties shall have equitable share in the spousal property. So already that has been defined in the Constitution. And so any conduct, any agreement which will, as it were, attempt to defeat or contravene that constitutional provision, then there will be a challenge. Because under the Constitution, no law, no conduct that seeks to contradict the Constitution will be made to stand. And then there's a plethora of cases, Supreme Court decisions, which are to the effect that you can't make what the Constitution has said to be lawful to be unlawful.
Okay.
And then you can also make what the Constitution says to be unlawful to be lawful.
Okay.
You understand? And so that was said in 24 verses Attorney General. And so when you make a prenup under the current dispensation, that ceases to contravene Article 22, 3, then there is a problem. It may not be enforced because that will seek to, as it were, go against public policy and again offense the mother law, which is the Constitution.
Okay. But in what situations are prenups important? Why should we even consider it in the first place?
Well, these are issues that are coming up because of our society is growing all the time. So some of this being dynamic, our society is revolving. And so all these considerations are coming in because of the ideas that people go into marriage with. Already, people go into marriage not because of the social stability aspect of the marriage, the sanctity of marriage, but people go into marriage ostensibly for their financial or material motives. And that is why all these conversations are coming up. But currently, if you sign a prenup, to enforce it, you must be able to demonstrate that it doesn't offend the Constitution in any way, based on the parameters that the Constitution has set. And then the Supreme Court has also gone on in a number of cases to give direction on how spousal properties are supposed to be administered or distributed upon dissolution. So if I'm to walk you through down the lane, early on, there were decisions that a man and a woman, a woman and the children are only supposed to be supporters of the husband. The earlier decisions, they don't have any share.
Wow.
You are just supposed to support the husband in his stations of life.
So in a case of, in that case, when there's a divorce, what happens? They walk away with nothing.
Exactly. That was the earlier position. Now, fast forward, the court in its wisdom, because the Constitution is a living organism, our laws are a living organism. It has to give a meaning based on our societal change. The court traveled further to say that no, a spouse should have some share, but it should be based on substantial contribution. So it means that you may have to contribute substantially, and that onus lies on you to give evidence that you contributed in a way to the exactly in the acquisition.
All right, Ronan, I'm sure you've got questions.
So if the prenup is there, does it then, well, move away from, let's say, some agreements or perhaps properties that are jointly acquired, in terms of if the prenup then is in place and let's say the marriage also is dissolved, in terms of how those agreements in the interest of those properties relate to some other persons? And these are, we were talking about two individuals.
I didn't know. He's also joining. Anyway.
He is.
So 2 against 1.
You're fine.
Anyway, but when there is a prenup, I was trying to lay the development of the marital distribution and where. So prenup, then you are saying that if I acquire the property individually, and then it's none of your business, the other spouse is not entitled to, that position does not offend the Constitution, because the Constitution, as I said, under Article 18, entitles you to own property by yourself or in association with others. So when you have already acquired the property,
before coming into the marriage,
then it doesn't become a spousal property.
Oh, if I acquired it individually before we decided to get married, when we get divorced, even though we've signed a prenup, you can't have access to it.
So I early on stated that enforcing prenup will be a big hurdle.
Yes.
Because of the constitutional...
You mean in Ghana?
Yes. Because of the constitutional parameters. Recently, there's been a decision of the Court of Appeal, which, as it were, made mention of prenup, to the effect that in the case of Emmanuel Obin and then Kate, one case, alias Ruberio or something. And then the court mentioned of a prenup, that because it's an agreement, once the parties have signed on to the agreement without any compulsion, and then the court must give effect to it. But that case should be distinguished in the sense that the court was making reference to the fact that if it has to be a joint property, then it will be difficult. But if it is an individual individually acquired property, then in that case, the court will even not bother itself because already you acquired it by yourself.
Yes.
I wasn't there when you acquired it. So that will not be an issue at all.
So even though the Bible says, and the two shall be one, when it comes to the prenups, it doesn't mean that the properties that I acquired by myself before I got into the marriage becomes ours.
No, not at all. Not at all.
All right.
With that clarity, let's move on.
Okay. So then, if let's say a prenup is signed, how is it respected by the courts in Ghana?
All right. So already
in relation to existing laws.
Yes, the Constitution, as you mentioned.
Already, the Constitution has already provided a parameter.
Okay.
The law says that
in 22, you say.
Sorry.
Article 22.
Article 22, 3, A and B talks about access, equal access to the property, first place. Second, equitable share upon dissolution in the joint property.
Okay.
Joint property.
Okay.
Now, the Supreme Court, I was given a trajectory of where our spousal property distribution has evolved over the years. And then if, I don't know if we have time.
No, we don't have time. So, so we are asking that there is existing law.
Yes.
Already.
That guides in the Constitution.
That guides this.
Exactly.
Now, Cookie and I are going into an arrangement of a marriage. So we sign an agreement, which you are now telling us is called prenup. Okay. So irrespective of the existing law, if we have in that agreement, let's say various clauses or let's say sections of that agreement, that is indicating that so and so property that is acquired, irrespectively whether jointly or not jointly, but within the period of this arrangement we have, is guided by this agreement, which is the prenup. This is how we're going to share it. And there's dissolution of that marriage. So I'm asking, irrespective of the existing law, do we go by the existing agreement in the prenup?
In the prenup, or we go according to the law?
No contracts, as it were, will contravene the constitutional provision.
Okay, and so it doesn't supersede it.
It wouldn't,
as well.
It can't.
Okay.
So that's why I said there will be a legal header.
Okay.
So supposing we agree that, let's say, any car that is bought within the period of the marriage, you're going to divide that.
So that's even my question. Let's just say Roland and I decide to buy a Toyota Corolla today. Let's say it's 10,000 Ghana. Okay. But I brought 2,000 Ghana and Roland brought 8,000 to buy the car. God forbid, if we're getting divorced today, according to the prenup that we have, you're better to say.
So the determination depends on case-by-case basis. Already, you have decided that, so it was jointly acquired.
Yes, jointly. But I contributed less.
You contributed less.
Yes.
And then you say that you want to have that share.
Yes.
Upon the dissolution.
So I'm asking that what will be the ratio? Is it going to be 50-50, or because I contributed 2,000 Ghana cedis, Roland will have a bigger chunk of the money?
Okay, so that one, it will base on equity. The court will have to, and when we equitable, that's why the Constitution uses equitable share.
Okay.
And then it depends, equity basically means fair, reasonable, under the circumstance. Okay. So the court will have to evaluate the circumstance of the case. In this case, the contract is not, as it were, denying a party an entitlement in the property under question. So the court will have to evaluate the particular case in point and then award the sharing. So it's not fixed.
Okay.
It's not fixed. Okay. But this agreement that you and Roland have may have the blessing of the court because it doesn't seem to offend the Constitution in any way. Okay. The challenge is that if you decide that when you go your separate ways, a party will be denied, then there will be a problem. Because the Constitution has already said.
You're saying the legal header will only arise if, let's say, there's a dispute, a point where there's a departure from what is stated in the agreement. Exactly.
So if you don't take it to court, nothing arises.
But let's just say that in that same marriage that a prenup was signed, we acquire a property. I'm saying we because we are married. But practically and truthfully, I contributed nothing. It was Roland who bought the house all by himself.
But we have it in the prenup that...
Exactly. In a case of a divorce, what happens with that one?
So the court will, based on Article 22 give you a share.
Even though it was
the law,
Roland who built
yes,
it
exactly. So the court, in the recent cases regarding spousal property, says that it doesn't matter whether you contributed financially or materially. Now, the court has stated that you, as the woman, during the subsistence of the marriage, you took care of Roland.
I was giving him food every morning.
I'm sure that's why his cheeks will be...
Ironing his clothes and all that, cooking for him.
You see?
Yes.
So it makes sense. So the Supreme Court has held over the period that at first, you are supposed to be a supporter. Secondly, substantial contribution. Thirdly, it came to equality. And then the court says that in ensuring that equitable share, it doesn't matter whether you contributed financially or materially. Once the person supported you, fed you, or whichever
when
be the case.
He goes on site and he comes back with his dirty boots. I clean it.
You clean it. You take care of the children. You receive his visitors. You make the home congenial for him. So the Supreme Court will say that on that basis, then you have contributed in a way to the acquisition of the property. So a share will be given to you equitably.
Equitably.
Is it fair?
Very fair.
So would you, based on the current explanation you've given us and recall of cases and case law, encourage couples in Ghana to
sign prenups?
To be undertaking prenups?
Well, I will say as it stands, because there is no law regulating it, and then the Constitution has been given effect through judicial pronouncement, it will be very difficult for you to have such an arrangement under the current circumstance. However, if you have it, you may have it, but if you have it, it shouldn't offend the Constitution. Either than that, you have difficulty enforcing it. So it should be within the parameters of the law. That one, the court is minded to give effect to what the parties have agreed on.
Okay. All right. I think that will be it for today. We would have to expatiate more later, but then thank you so much for coming. We'll put a stone on it here for today.